high science. Okay, so yes, I am not there, but I also wouldn't ask you to go through and do something that I'm not willing to do. And so what we're going to go through and do right now is we're going to go through this video session with HACCP. I figure this is a great way to go through and get you the material, and it's also a good way for me to go through and make sure that you can go through and see this even after you've left the class. So I highly recommend you to go through and download these videos after we've gone through them, after you've gone through and watched them, after you've gone through and asked questions and answered it, and I've answered them, or you've answered them yourself, to go through and have this in your repository, in your toolbox that you can go through and you can get back at a future time. Okay, so this is HACCP basics. This is the road to reduced risks, because that's what HACCP is about, reducing risks. I'm going to go through this in 15-minute increments so that if you want to go through and ask questions, if you've got a particular question about something that I go through and say, or something that comes up in the topic, go back and refer to, hey, video 3 or video 4 is a second 15-minute video. It's easy to go through and quickly recall information like that. And it also allows you to be able to go through and stop and say, hey, I'm going to go through and I'm going to watch 15 minutes at a time. So here we go. We've got to understand some basic food safety principles. And yes, hey, I'm going to go through this a little bit faster because all of you should know a lot of this stuff, right? Buy cold food, you're going to get it home, order it like that, check cans for leaks, that kind of stuff. Storing foods, don't wait to refrigerate, keep it off the floor, always put away cleaning supplies, keep them away from foods. Like I say, not going through a lot of this stuff. Cook foods thoroughly. Use a meat thermometer. I know that in class I go through and I say a lot of times, hey, I don't use meat thermometers, but that's because I've got years of experience knowing what is safe. So if you're new to that, or if it's somewhat foreign to you, or if it's one of those where you're cooking for somebody that you really don't want to get sick, be safe, use a meat thermometer. Storing those leftovers, like I say, I know I go through and say that it's safe for pizza to be left out longer than probably what it should be for some of you, but it's one of those to where I know my system. I know the safety principles that were used in making that pizza product. I know the safety principles that I can go through and assure that, hey, if the water activity is low, if the pH is low, if there are certain food products there that have nitrites, or if they go through and have high salt levels, those are hurdles to go through and stop microbial growth. So at that point, hey, I'm safe with that. I want you to be able to understand the principles enough as well. After you've left this class, hopefully you've already got a good solid understanding, but it's one of those to go through and know, hey, that's what we're working towards, so that you can use that critical thinking and those reasoning skills to know what is safe and what is not. So we've got to go through and know what is HACCP. Like I say, we've done a little bit of a primer in class, but we've got to go through and know this a little bit deeper, especially if we're going to go through and get some type of certification out of it, right? We've got to be able to go through and understand, be able to explain, maybe be able to even train someone else. HACCP is a systematic approach to identification, assessment, and control of hazards throughout the flow of service and production. Particularly, we're looking at red meat, but we also go through and look at dairy. We look at juice production. There's a lot of seafood, a lot of things that we can go through and we can look at. In a word, HACCP's all these things. HACCP's all these things. Okay. Introduction. HACCP's that systematic, scientific-based approach to food safety. Scientific. Got to be able to prove that, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is how we've come up with these rules, these regulations. Systematic. Hey, we've got a process that we're going to follow. Not a replacement for quality control programs. Not just something to go through and say, hey, let's check this box. Right? Built out of TQM, or Total Quality Management, with Dr. Deming evaluating Japanese products for quality. Developed with NASA and General Foods. General Foods for space travel. I mean, hey, we're in the rocket city. We should go through and we should care about this, as much, if not more, than a lot of other areas. GMPs, we all know what GMPs stand for. General Manufacturing Practices. And SSOPs, Sanitation Standard Operating Procedures, must be in place along with support from the top as far as management. HACCP's enforced by agencies like Food Safety Inspection Service, under the Food and Drug Administration, under USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. Again, go back to that scientific process control system for eliminating contaminants at critical areas in the food production and distribution. Again, we do need to go through and be concerned about how people are going to go through and take that food from that retail establishment or from that wholesale establishment and get it home. You sometimes may go through and ask, but do I need it? Well, HACCP is mandatory, and we go through and we can see it's meat and poultry, seafood, juice products, right? We can go through and we can talk about, hey, it's being voluntary for some areas, but it's one of those, hey, it's mandatory for these, right? It's voluntary right now for milk and dairy. So it's one of those, hey, will it come to be? Will it come to be one of those to where the restaurant industry or the restaurant business has to go through and use it? Maybe so. So you go through and you ask, wait a minute, do I really need it? I'm just taking this as a class. It's me. New regulations require under that Food Safety Inspection Service for HACCP, new regulations require that each establishment develop and implement written sanitation standard operating procedures, require regular microbial testing, establish pathogen reduction, require that all meat and poultry establishments develop and implement a system of preventative controls designed to improve the safety of their products known as HACCP. So it is required. But wait a minute, you asked, do I need it? You know, Spencer, you may be asking yourself, do I need it? Training. Only an individual who has met the requirements of paragraph B of this section, but who need not be an employee of the establishment, shall be permitted to perform the following functions. Individual performing the functions listed in paragraph A of the section shall have successfully completed a course of instruction in the application of the 7 HACCP principles of meat production, such and such and such and such. So, do you need it? Yeah. Challenges. We go through and we recognize that more and more people are getting sick. More foodborne illnesses are being recognized. We go through and we recognize that there's more concern for chemical contamination, such as lead, right? Increasing size of the food industry. And realistically, in this one right here, increasing size of the food industry, I think we can all agree that the people that may be in the food industry don't have as much training as we would like for them to have. Tremendous growth of diversity of products and processes. We're bringing in more global products. FDA, state, and local agencies have the same limited level of resources. Don't we continually hear about that? Budget cuts for government, right? The government's not going to pass the budget. They can't do this. They can't buy that. Can't spend money on this. Growing trend in international trade for worldwide equivalents of food products. Codex Alimentarius Commission's adoption of HACCP as the international standard for food safety. Right? All these things are going through and saying that, hey, we need HACCP. HACCP focuses on identifying and preventing hazards. Permits more efficient and effective government oversight. It goes through and allows a firm to go through and almost regulate themselves. The government comes in and checks and says, hey, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? But the firm is the one that's really and truly doing the work. Provides buyers, consumers, government enforcement, trade agencies justified assurance that control systems are in place. So at that point, you can go through and you can prove that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Lastly, HACCP is required for India exports, and this is one of those where I thought it was kind of funny because I went through and I showed a very similar presentation for the Cochrane Fellowship Fellows that we had 2 years ago, and it was one of those to where they had to go through and take HACCP as far as the international trade because it's required for India exports. For them to send stuff to us, they had to be able to go through and prove that they had HACCP training, that they had conducted HACCP tests, the analysis to go through and look and make sure that their food products are safe. Definition. These definitions, you need to go through and be able to define them, pure and simple. They will be on the final, pure and simple. Control point. Any step at which biological, chemical, or physical hazard can be controlled. If we're looking at this biological, we may be going through and saying, hey, how much did you cook it? If you cooked it well enough to go through and control microbial growth, then that is a critical point. Okay? Step at which control can be applied is essential to prevent or eliminate a food safety hazard. If it was the last step in that cooking, or you went through and you smoked it, and then you went through and you cooked it, hey, this becomes critical control. Okay? Control point, any step at which biological, chemical hazard can be controlled. You can smoke it. You can go through and cold smoke some fish to go through and make sure that you're going to go through and have some type of biological control because of the phenols that you put onto the meat surface itself. But it's one of those to where when you really truly went through and cooked it, now it's a critical control point. Okay. Critical limit, when it's able to go through and get outside that critical control point. When that becomes to where you have a minimum or a maximum value that it has to reach. Minimum may be refrigeration. What's the minimum temperature or the maximum temperature that it can go through and be at. Deviation is when you don't meet that critical limit. Standard operating procedures, set of directions that must be followed to ensure food safety. Okay? Food safety SOPs, corrective actions, monitoring procedures, verification procedures, record-keeping procedures. These are SOPs, standard operating procedures, to go through and look at as far as the principles within it. HACCP plan for developmental steps. Assemble the HACCP team, right? Multidisciplinary, right? To go through and get people from engineering, to go through and get people from chemistry, to go through and get people from product development, to go through and get people from marketing. Marketing, why marketing? Because the marketing people may go through and change something in the last steps as far as how the package is designed. And engineering may not get that until after they've already shipped the product out. Now we've made a hazard. The marketing team may go through and say, hey, let's go through and put it so it's in this red package. That red package may go through and contain some type of toxin or chemical that would leach into the food product. But it looks better, but it's not safe. So multidisciplinary. You want to define the food as distribution, intended use, and consumer of the products. Who's going to eat it? We know that if it's YOPI, Y-O-P-I, young, old, pregnant, and immunocompromised, if it's in that YOPI category, it's going to go through and have a different requirement than if it's just going out to college kids. Because, I mean, hey, y'all for the most part should be healthier than those young, those very old, those that are pregnant, and those that are immunocompromised because they had a blood transfusion or an organ donation or something like that. You should be healthier than them. So it's one of those of, hey, whoever the consumer is makes a big difference. Develop the list of ingredients and raw materials. Develop a verify a process flow diagram. And that's basically going through and saying that, hey, it's going to go from receiving up here to some type of storage to maybe a freezing to a cooking down to a final packaging and shipment. Right? That process flow diagram can really help you find out if there's something that you missed. Meet regulatory requirements for sanitation standard operating procedures. So, assembling that team, top management support is required. You got to be able to go through and have your managers in place that are going to go through and support you, because if not, they're going to go through and say, hey, this is not cost effective. We're not willing to go through and put money into this. Right? Product parameters need to be go through and defined as far as the intended use. Describe completely each product that's made. We talked about it in the grocery store. Bologna versus hot dogs. Are they different enough? Right? Those kind of things. Aids in identification of hazards that may exist in the ingredients or in those packaging materials. This is the big thing right here. So here we go through and we look at a process description. We're looking at pork sausage. Pork sausage. That's the product, right? Product category. If we wanted to go through and list out as far as categories, we'd say that it's a raw, ground meat, and a poultry product, right? Raw being that, hey, it's not cooked. The consumer's going to have to cook it. So we're going to have to go through and have some special labeling on there. Ground meat, so that it's going to be a comminuted or a mixed ground product. It's not going to be whole muscle. So again, special labeling. And then it's like I say, meat and poultry products. Following questions need to be answered when developing the product category description. Common name, pork sausage. Everybody recognizes that versus a common and fanciful name. A fanciful name, someone may not be able to go through and identify what is that product by a fanciful name. Like an Oreo. If you didn't know what an Oreo was, would you know what an Oreo was by the name? No, it doesn't define that it's a cookie, right? How to be used. Cooked by a consumer. Raw, cooked. Raw, cooked. So how to be used. Cooked by a consumer. Type of package. 1 pound chub. A chub is basically the roll, like a plastic sleeve that you go through and you see in the grocery store. And we saw some of those. A lot of times there'll be a little metal clip down at the end. We refer to that in the industry as a tipper tie. We go through and just put that little metal clip on there. We fill the plastic thing up, the plastic tube, clip one end of it. We've got it in 1 pound chubs. Shelf life, how long? 45 days, less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, it's raw, it's not frozen. Where sold, retail, labeling instruction, safe handling and refrigeration required. Special distribution, yes, we've got to go through and keep it under refrigeration. We're at 15 minutes. See you in the next video.